Hey horror fans, welcome back to the Week in Horror, November 17th through November 23rd. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I'm JL, and with me are Eugene and
up?
Alex.
Hey, what's up?
So, I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time on this, so I will make it as brief as I can, and I'll probably talk rather quickly, but I'll be as clear as I possibly can. In our weekly anecdote, we generally talk about what we did the previous week or about scary things that we've encountered out in the world. And a special event recently came to North Texas that I personally could not pass up. So I went out to the Flat Earth Convention over in Frisco, Texas. Now, to quickly preface this, I am not a flat earther, and I did not go there with the intention of convincing flat earthers that the world is an oblate spheroid. I did go there because, one, the notion of millions of people believing the earth is flat is a scary concept for me. Two, because I was more interested in the psychology behind the flat earth worldview. And three, because I was kind of hoping to irk a flat earther if I got the chance. However, what started as something quirky and a little disconcerting turned into something truly horrific. So after engaging with many flat earthers, what I found was a community of people composed primarily of the disenfranchised, governed by anti-establishment ideals. I found scores of individuals who have upset their lives and lost friends, family, jobs, even their homes because of their new worldview. I saw people desperate for somewhere to belong, desperate for a tribe to call their own, with people who think like they do and hold the same values. And I found a host of flat earth leaders who most of, from what I personally observed, do not believe the earth is flat and are wholesale lying to the community before them. These individuals are preying upon the desperation, fear, paranoia, anger, and religiously grounded scientific illiteracy of this group. Now, I saw profound sadness, loneliness, and pain as these individuals struggle every day to make ends meet because all their money goes to traveling to flat earth meetups and conferences just so they can enjoy the company of their community and feel what all of us humans so desperately need, inclusion. Because many of these leaders base their preaching of the flat earth upon a religious foundation and use extremely subjective biblical scripture to reinforce their bad science, I see that flat earth is not actually a scientific movement, it is actually a cult. And it is larger than I anticipated, and its members are far more fervent than I expected. And if anyone dares rebuke their claims, it simply reinforces their belief structures and further entrenches them in their broken ideology. It really is far more terrifying than I initially thought. While I was at the conference, and I never bought a ticket, though I did briefly go inside while I was in the company of YouTube creator Team Skeptic and his crew, I was called a liar, I was called a government shill, I was called ignorant, stupid, a fucking retard, and a Satanist. That was my personal favorite. While I did have some productive conversations, primarily I was attacked, and most of it was unprovoked interruptions while I was conversing with other people. I did almost lose my shit over a Sandy Hook hoaxer, because capitalizing on a national tragedy will never fly with me, and I almost decked that kid. Fortunately, after I dressed him down, he ran the fuck off like his hair was on fire. So, to close this out, we may laugh at Flat Earth, or call them idiots, or stupid, or ill-informed, or even troll them for fun, but the reality, as I observed it, is far scarier. A true horror, if I may. There is a cult that has built with self-professed godfathers and icons that takes the money of their disenfranchised, gullible followers without a care for where it leaves them afterwards, preaching a gospel of disinformation that preys upon fear, anger, paranoia, and desperation. It is one of the sickest forms of predatory capitalism I have ever seen up close, and I hope one day, as our technology grows and we expand into space and further into the cosmos, it too will go the way of snake oil salesmen, cure-all tonics, and pyramid schemes to its grave.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
So it sounds like it was an experience.
It definitely was. It definitely was. I wasn't expecting what I got, but I actually got more than I anticipated. And while I'm thankful to the good conversations that I had, that was my ultimate takeaway from going to the Flat Earth Convention in Frisco, Texas, Flat Earth Convention 2019. I met some really cool people. I got to hang out with Team Skeptic and his crew, and that was a lot of fun. And I met a lot of the leadership. I met Mark Sargent. I met Bob Nodell. I met Flat Earth Fokker. I met Nathan Thompson. I met a bunch of people, like a bunch of these hardcore people, and it was in meeting them and talking to them, not about science, but about worldviews, that my takeaway was that these guys don't believe this shit. And it is just a cash grab for them. And watching these people, kind of watching it as an outsider, kind of taking, watching this thing take place was really scary. It was scarier than I thought it would be, which is why I felt it had
terrifying.
A good place.
Some end of the world stuff, man.
Yeah. It was like being in the heart. It was like being in the heart. It was like, if you could imagine, like if you were in the heart as an observer of like the Heaven's Gate cult, okay? Or if you could be a fly in the wall in Scientology, all right? Or something of that nature. It's fucking scary. It was, so.
It really is, because you create something that basically allows people to ignore all reason and scientific breakthrough, and it's like, no matter how much evidence there is, I'm going to believe this, and that's scary.
Yeah, and I worry what will happen to these people, because there's a company out there that is currently planning to put the first orbital hotel in space. It'll pretty much orbit at the same height as the ISS. It'll be a commercial hotel, so people can go there. Now, it will be pricey, obviously, because spaceflight is not cheap. They're estimating like $15,000 to $20,000, per person. But it's fucking spaceflight, so it's expensive. Strapping your ass to a rocket and going into space, that's no small thing. But it's a commercial endeavor, and tourists will be able to go there and be a tourist in space. And you'll be able to stay in a room, like in a hotel, in space. And when something like that happens, I anticipate the bottom is just going to fall out of this shit. It's going to fall out of it, and these people are going to have no straws to grab. And, of course, the leaders who are bilking them out of their money, the leaders will just merrily have those like, okay, well, we got their money. Well, it's over now, so I got my money. We're good to go. And they'll just leave. They'll just leave town like any snake oil salesman in the Old West. The sheriff would chase them out of town. Well, they just move on to the next small town. Well, that's what this will happen. The leadership will find some other new thing to take advantage of, while the people that followed them will be left in the dust and wondering what the hell happened. And that is a scary prospect. I really, really empathize with what these people are going through, and I don't envy them where they're going to end up.
Hopefully, we keep Jonestown
as humans advance. It was wild.
Yeah, we'll avoid the Heaven's Gate cult, Jonestown, stuff like that.
Yeah. So I know that on the anecdote we sometimes talk about real scary stuff. We talk about Eugene, his experience with the tornado here in Dallas, and we talk about scary stuff we see, and this was a particularly scary thing. So I kind of went into the lion's den and got more than I bargained for, but it was eye-opening, and I have a better understanding of these individuals and a real healthy fear of what's going on in that community. So, and I feel bad for them. I wish I could help more, but it's really not my place. I'm not a huge scientist. I'm science-minded, but I'm more in psychology. It's not really my field. I'm not going to go out there and argue, the gravitational constant and shit. That's just not my field. So, but I will talk to these people and try to help them as best I can from a psychology standpoint. But it's wild.
Why don't we just knock it all out at once and build our own rocket and go into space? Start our own space hotel.
I know. Yeah.
It's like a pretty solid plan.
Oh. So, now that we got the anecdote out of the way, I've pretty much said what I want to say in the deal. So we've got a seriously packed week to go through. This is an awesome week, and it was a lot of fun putting this one together. But we're going to kick things off with November 26, 1997, Alien Resurrection premiered.
Yes, fourth
yes.
one.
Not Alien, not Aliens. Not Aliens 3.
Not Aliens, no. So, hey man, I actually liked Alien 3, okay? I thought David Fincher, he had a vision, and he went for it. You can't fault the director for knowing what he wants and going after it, regardless of what the fans think.
Or the studio thought.
Or, Rotten Tomatoes, or...
or the critics.
Or even Sigourney Weaver herself.
Or the cast. Or the cast itself. But hey, let's not slide it. Bald Sigourney was hot. Okay? She was. She looked tough. That was the first time. That's the first time I ever thought that she could probably
Tomb
take
Raider or Lord Croft?
Sarah Connor. All right, but Alien Resurrection was the fourth in the franchise. Was directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. It was actually written by Joss Whedon and had a pretty large cast. Sigourney Weaver, Winona Ryder, character actor Ron Perlman, one of my favorites. Brad Dourif was in, and Michael Wincott. And for those who don't remember Michael Wincott, he doesn't do a ton of stuff these days, but Michael Wincott was also top dollar in The Crow. And I've always, since he was in The Crow, I've always been a huge fan of him. So, but a pretty large cast. But in essence, to catch people up, Alien Resurrection is set like 200 years in the future. And after the events of Alien 3, Ripley's DNA was collected from Fury 161, and she was cloned. But because her genetics were mixed with the alien queen that she died with, the clones they were coming up, what they were trying to do is basically clone a perfect version of Ripley so they could separate the alien queen from her. So they had to go through multiple experimentations. Eventually, they cloned Ripley and they cloned the queen so they can separate the two because the evil corporation wants to use the aliens as biological weapons. So they clone Ripley, bring her back to life, and then the craziness goes down when this group of space pirates comes in with a stock of people that they have kidnapped for the evil scientists to use as experimentation fodder, basically to implant them and basically grow new aliens. So in essence, they're trying to build a controlled hive on this ship. And as we all know, as fans of the series know, that when you try to breed aliens or you let them breed, they get wildly out of fucking control, and the shit hits the fan, and wackiness ensues.
Like Godzilla or Gremlins.
Jurassic
It's like
Park.
these fuckers. Yeah, it's like these fuckers never saw a movie
You don't mess with the aliens.
where life finds a way.
Finds a way.
Finds
a way. Yes, life finds a way to fucking school your ass.
Maybe it'll work the 20th
Remember,
time.
we're a lot smaller than anything that came before.
No, maybe.
So.
And one thing I can say, while Joss Whedon did say that this was the worst project he's ever written, it's the worst project he's ever written on. There are some cons or some aspects of the film that I actually have a fondness for. The number one thing is I really enjoyed the effects. I really did. I really dug it. The aliens in this one, the difference of them is that all the aliens they created are technically not like classic aliens, like from Cameron's Aliens or Ridley Scott's Alien. They don't have the classic look. They're slightly changed because they're not technically aliens. They're technically genetic hybrids between the alien and Ripley. So they have some like weird human characteristics. Like their hands are strangely human. They're not the double jointed, multiple fingered ones. They're like long fingers, and their double jaw, their mouth jaw that they use to kill can actually flex and move like a tongue.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, which is weird, but the puppetry and everything that brought these things to life was absolutely brilliant. I thought they used a little bit of CG for the wide shots, but mostly it was all practical effects.
Yeah, I was looking into it, and so the main one that that focuses on the very end was a hybrid. So you have where they come up with a hybrid, so it's like a more think of the classic Alien, the black long head and everything like that, except it actually has eyes, it has a mouth, it has a tongue, and other parts and stuff like that. And so they actually were going through and they're kind of playing with the design, and they're trying to find a balance between like how human do they want to make it and how alien do they want to make it. And the first design, they actually wanted to make it more human, and then it looked almost exactly like Species, the Natasha Henstridge movie. And they're like,
you're talking about the newborn, right? The whitish one that was born at the end.
Yeah, the newborn.
Okay, yeah.
So it ended up looking too much like Species, so we got to go back to the drawing board. And so they went and put it together, and the big controversy when they put it together was that the newborn originally had genitalia.
Oh.
Of course it did, because, why not?
Yeah.
Alien dong.
Yeah, it had an alien dick.
Holy crap, guys! We haven't showed a
And
penis.
they actually
this whole...
filmed the entire movie with the alien dick.
Oh my god. I can't imagine Sigourney Weaver sitting there like, this alien dick is swinging in my face.
So yeah, they went the entire production, right? Alien dick and all. And then even the director was like, you know what? For a Frenchman, this may be a little bit too much. So they
Not French, and this is too much dick.
These offends my sensibilities.
Maybe I did cross the line at some point. And so yeah, they had to CG out the dick in post.
That is fucking wild.
If it's old enough that you can like catch like little glitches in the CGI.
Okay, only Alex is going to go through that movie frame by frame.
I feel personally attacked right now.
You notice how you didn't deny it, you just feel personally attacked.
Don't call me out.
Don't call me out like that. What got me is what was reminiscent, I think, was kind of cool. And maybe they were going for it, maybe they didn't. Maybe it was a happy accident. Was the look of the newborn. The face in it was very much like a skull. And so he had the sunken in eyes, had like the occipital bones. The ocular bones, the cheekbones and everything. So it was a very skull look to the alien, to the newborn's face. And that reminded me of back in the day, like way back in the day with Ridley Scott's Alien. If you look really closely at the Ridley Scott design, the first original Alien, if you look closely, there is actually a human skull inside, like without a jaw, but inside the clear head part of the alien.
Like, did they use a real human skull? Because that'd be super metal.
That would be metal. I don't think they did, but I just remember that if I've seen, you can check out videos of it on YouTube like that, or you can go and look for yourself. You just gotta pause it. But there are moments when the light hits it just right, because the way it turned out, the plastic design of the head, because it was supposed to be kind of transparent, because of the environment they were shooting in, it tended to get fogged up quite a bit, and so it's difficult to kind of see, but sometimes the light hits it right and you can see the outline of the skull, because it was born out of a human. And so you can see the outline of the skull within that transparent
super cool.
dome.
I'll have to go back and watch that whole thing.
You know, it's really...
I wanted to check that out.
It's really creepy. And it seemed like a happy accident that it was kind of like a callback. Just, like it was like callback to the original design. They had like the skull looking face of the newborn. I thought that was a nice callback to the original movie. If it was intended. maybe it may not have been.
You might be looking too deep into it, because after Ridley Scott, you had a whole slew of other things going on. Okay, did you enjoy the James Cameron sequel?
Oh, I fucking love Cameron.
See, I thought it was great.
I thought that was
Oh yeah, Aliens is awesome.
Alien was good. I mean, Alien was written well, and I don't know. Aliens was my favorite, I think. And you were talking about 3 too when Fincher got in there, like kind of bounced around a lot between those 3. But like in order, it's like Ridley Scott was real serious about it. Cameron was really creative with it, and then you got Fincher's. It was good.
I think he would.
Go ahead.
I like how it's like the movies kind of take on like the personalities of the director, because Ridley Scott is a more kind of a slow pace, like kind of Blade Runner, that kind of thing, and then James Cameron is like, super action packed and all this other kind of stuff, and David Fincher's more twisted, and then so you can kind of see like these directors, and
then you got Resurrection, which was you're talking about it like, so I thought it was a really good movie, like it was like it was really well done. But then you kind of had to come back along to like the space pirates. Like, okay, cool. Now we've got space pirates. And, I don't know. It gets kind of ridiculous.
You see, and I think that was the failure of it. That's where it started dropping off, is when they legitimately tried to start expanding the universe on it, because they built the universe out big. We got away, because originally it was just Ripley, the alien species, and Weyland-Yutani. That was it. The evil corporation that wants the bug, and then Ripley trying to stop the bug. Very simple formula. And everybody is, and everyone's tertiary. Yeah, everyone's tertiary to that. But you bring this in, now we've got space pirates, and we've got another evil corporation, and then we're hearkening back to the events of 3, which brought in the prisoners and the prisoner planet and genetic cloning, and it was like the director's attempt, or Joss Whedon. I love you for Avengers, and I love you for Buffy, but fuck, dude. It's like you tried to build this world, and the formula that he used did not play into the established formula of 3 films. Because at least in 3, it was Fincher's vision. It was dark. It was grimy. It was gritty. You know, you had, and instead of Marines, it was prisoners. Real simple. Mm-hmm. So they just changed it out. So, yeah, because Ripley's always around. Because in the first movie, Ripley was around company men. And in the second film, it's Ripley around Marines. And in the third film, it's Ripley around prisoners. Now it's space pirates and evil scientists working for a corporation around Ripley that's not even really Ripley.
It happens a lot. What year did Doom come out? Now that I'm thinking about it, it had to have been pretty close.
Doom with The Rock?
It's like 05, I think.
Was it really? Was it that far ahead?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was a few. It was a
kind
few
of that
years
same
out.
style where it gets into space and you start getting all ridiculous. But that happened in a lot of stuff. Like even in like Resident Evil, like they went from like real literally down to earth to then you get into this huge you gotta you can only take it so far, and when you get into like 3 and everything kind of and then the Sigourney Weaver goes down and they could have just stopped, but then they had to come back with something, and where do you go from that? They're like 200 really years in the future, and then you kind of got to go to space. It's 97. We've got really nothing else going on in our lives. Fuck it, let's make another space alien movie.
Well, the thing that always kind of fell off about that movie, and there are parts I like about it, parts I don't like about it, but the thing that really kind of turned me off when I saw it was Ripley is one of my favorite characters, in film, period. I love her so much, and then you see her, and it's just it just didn't feel like her.
Yeah, it definitely took away from Ripley. It wasn't our Ripley.
Yeah, it wasn't the "get away from her, you bitch" Ripley that we cheered for. It was more like now she's floating in fluid with the aliens.
Now she is the alien.
Now I have deep psychic connection to the alien, and I'm I'm all weird and morbid and shit, and I don't know where I fit in. Fuck that shit.
Fucking Ridley.
Fucking Ripley kicks ass, takes names, and nails motherfuckers to the wall.
Fuck yeah.
That is what Ripley does. Okay? Which is why I'm so glad that Linda Hamilton had so much input into Sarah Connor for Dark Fate.
Dude, I heard it bombed so hard.
And now while Dark Fate didn't play well, it really didn't, but I did like from the behind the scenes that Linda Hamilton pretty much came in and took over took the role and was no, this is not what Sarah would do. Is given the events that took place, he was no, Sarah would not do this, Sarah would not say this. She knows Sarah Connor.
Nice.
And Sarah Connor, is her. So she was not going to let anybody fuck up that character. So I think we get a very honest and very legitimate portrayal of Sarah Connor in that movie because she refused to let anybody change it. And I think that's the reason Sigourney has never come back to the Alien franchise. She hasn't come back yet. She may come back one day, but she has not come back yet simply because they kind of took Ripley away from her and altered it to a point where it'd be very difficult to go back to the original Ripley unless you did a prequel film.
Yeah, if you could do something in between, I don't know. Yeah, somebody's got some kind of prequel or something like that before the first one, or sometime in between the first. I don't know, something like that. But going back to it, that would be nice.
Yeah, I think the sadly the franchise with Alien vs Predator and Alien vs Predator Requiem, and each having decent moments, just absolutely just fucking silly. And then, of course, I know Ridley Scott's bringing it back. He's got Prometheus under his belt, and he's got Covenant under his belt. And I enjoyed some moments of Covenant, but it felt like he was trying to recapture it. That almost felt like he was trying to really recapture the feel of Alien and Aliens. And because Prometheus was all very slow and it was build and then, stuff like that. And then the action came towards the end, just like in Alien. And then in Covenant, it was like a group of people, they're settlers, but they go out, and then it was just, the action picked up very quickly, and the action was very long towards the end. The only thing good about those films so far that I think is Michael Fassbender. He's fucking amazing.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. And hopefully, because I know that Ridley's going to come out with a third one, even though he's getting up there in age. But I know I think he's supposed to finish out this new trilogy, and this third film is going to link his Covenant, his Prometheus trilogy. It's going to link that to the first Alien film. Is my guess, is what's supposed to happen. So hopefully we'll have that. And hopefully it'll kind of save the franchise, and then we can have a big, long storyline from Prometheus all the way to Alien vs. Predator Requiem.
Yeah.
So, but that brings us up to the audience, to our lovely, lovely audience, our horror fanatics. What is your favorite Alien film? Your favorite in the franchise? There's so many to pick from. Tell us in the comments. Let us know. What is your favorite Alien film? What? Robin Williams?
Jeez. Yeah, that was a good movie. Shut up.
Of course, I should have said Jerry Lewis, but
Wally.
Wally was sweet.
Well,
yes.
Wally was. All right, so we got our next movie coming up, right? Which came out November 27th, 2002, the year I graduated high school. So, give an indication of my age.
I say, oh God, because that was. Yeah, Jared. Never mind. We won't go there. Anyways.
So we have a movie.
I'm sorry. I say, oh God, because you're like.
I'm sorry.
Like, oh God, you're so young. I'm like, oh God.
I'm sorry.
So
I just saw. I'm like, all I saw was Jamie Lee Curtis in Freaky Friday. I'm old. I'm like the Crypt Keeper. Yes, I'm fucking old. I graduated in 98.
2008.
Oh my God.
I'm like in
the middle.
In the middle. So,
fuck, my sciatica is acting up.
Lower back pain start kicking in. So we got the movie They, directed by Robert Herman, starring Laura Regan, Mark Blankus from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and a slew of people from the 90s like Ethan Ubre, Jay Brazu, and Alexander Gold. Right? And it actually follows a group of people who suffer from night terrors. And it starts off with a young boy who ends up being afraid of the dark and waking up from a nightmare. Of course, mother comes in, doesn't believe him. There's monsters and all this other kind of stuff. And he gets whisked away to another dimension. Right? Where dark... And so it cuts to the present day, and we have our main character, Julia, who starts experiencing these night terrors again. That she had these when she was young and coming back, and she meets up with Billy, the kid who gets whisked away and comes back, says the night terrors are real. Then he kills himself because he's done. And she and her other friends have to go battle these creatures that exist in the dark that come from an alternate dimension that only they can see and interact with. Kind of thing. And so it's scary because it starts going into kind of sleep disorders. This idea of like sleep paralysis kind of thing. And especially as a kid, things that play off like on the dark, what happens in the closet, where you open a closet and it's like another dimension when she opens the mirror and you see like another world and all these creatures are crawling around and stuff like that. That's things I was scared of when I was a kid.
I remember that scene. That scene was pretty fucking freaky when I think it was in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like the mirror had turned black and she could look and she saw into it and saw the other dimension where these things exist. Yeah, that was
pretty terrifying.
That was fucking freaky.
Yeah,
that was kind of well done.
That was really well done back then.
It really was, and I feel like it's a movie that doesn't get enough play. It doesn't like no one talks about it. I like I it,
Well, it was Wes Craven. Well, Wes Craven was behind this one because I think it was Wes Craven. It was also released as Wes Craven's They, and it's the thing about Wes Craven, man. Wes Craven had a real big thing about dreams because the whole concept of Freddy Krueger, came up with I think it was a dream that Wes Craven had when he was younger, and he had this recurring nightmare. And his way of kind of dealing with that was he wrote A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think since those days, I think he was always really kind of, I wouldn't say obsessed, but he was really focused on the idea of sleep and how that's kind of a frightening position to be in, the terror of being asleep. And it played well in Nightmare, and it plays pretty well in this one as well, because this one, instead of like a dream demon, this one's playing off an actual like physical malady that people suffer from.
And that's something that like I don't think people really understand if they've never experienced sleep paralysis or night terrors, how absolutely terrifying that situation is. Because you're not it's something that I've suffered from my entire life. As a child, it happened to me, and even recently it's happened, but for my specific, I haven't met a lot of people that have dealt with it, but for my specific situation, if you will, it's always like this weird, I'll have really like lucid, vivid dreams right before it happens, and then I'll be in a position where I'll wake up and I can't move, and I feel like I can't breathe, and I start to panic, and I'm like sitting in a room, but something's always wrong. And that's something that I had to like teach myself over years of dealing with it, and just being terrified and waking up not being able to breathe and like choking, gasping for air, scared out of my mind. Because what happens to me is like I'll wake up, but I'm not really awake. I'm kind of in like a half dream state, and something from the previous dream always seems to like indicate that I'm not quite fully awake yet. Although like I'll be sitting in my room like I went to sleep, but I can't move, but then there's something in the room that's not right. And then I'll be like, oh my God, I'm still asleep. And then I'll have to try to wake myself up. And that can like repeat over and over again until you finally like snap out of it and wake up. And I've woken up with like my hands completely cramped up because my muscles were so tense because I was like trying to move, but I couldn't. And it's terrifying. It's absolutely, it's something I like. Those nights I cannot fall back asleep. I've had situations where I've had the people call it like shadow people, but it's more just like a feeling of just absolute terror, and it feels like there's something just like holding you down that you can't see but you can feel, and it feels like not right at all. And it's so scary. And then you finally wake up and it's like, oh my God, you're panicking, your adrenaline's running. It's like, yep, I guess I'm just up now because I'm not going back into that shit.
So going on your personal experience, and that shit sounds fucking terrifying. I myself have never experienced it, but I find it interesting that you could actually find a link there. Like you said, you felt like there was something on you, like there was like something holding you down.
There's been times where I've swore there's just something in the corner of my room and I cannot move because of it.
And that kind of harkens back to to mythology, where people believe like an incubus or a succubus, and like they were on you, like they're physically on a person, like draining the life out of them, or something like that. So that may have, like sleep paralysis, night terrors may have played into that as far as like kind of a legendary thing. But we know that the reason you can't move is because your body paralyzes when you're in REM sleep. And then when you come out of that, you're aware, but your brain is still technically in REM. So that's why you can't move. That's why and that's why you're trying to take deeper breaths, but your body is slowed down to rest state. So you're taking more shallow breaths, or your breathing has slowed. So your diaphragm is not ready to expand as quickly. So you're trying to breathe into a diaphragm that's partially paralyzed, and that can be absolutely terrifying. But I'm curious. You bring this up, and recently in the Netflix series House on Haunted Hill, there was one of the characters there suffered from night terrors and sleep paralysis. Okay? And she went through the therapy to deal with it like this. So you saw Haunting on Hill, or the Haunting of Hill House. How close was that to what
Honestly,
you
it
experienced.
was extremely that part alone. When they brought that up, that kind of hit really hard because it was so close, and it. So like, okay, so I say I have these lucid dreams beforehand, and I don't know if you've ever had an extremely lucid dream, but it goes from being in these extreme, and they're always extreme situations, hiding from somebody, running from something, some sort of like something you're moving a lot in, and then all of a sudden, it's something that is, the last one that I had, I was in the basement of a house, and I was with my girlfriend, and her brother came over, and I was there, like I was absolutely there, and there was a speaker that was playing the whole time, and I came out of this. I thought I had woken up, but I couldn't move, and all I could see on my bed was this speaker, and that's when like I said, I kind of just started figuring out that like there's always like an aspect to it, and so it's like your brain's awake, but your body's still asleep, and you're still dreaming, and so like I'd see the speaker on the bed. And I was like, I'm still sleeping, and so you have to like pull yourself out. And so, like Haunting of Hill House, like when she's going through that therapy, and you can tell like she's all shook up. It's super close. That really hits hard because it's intense. It's definitely something that affects your daily life. And what scene are you referring to in Hill House? Or if you can come up with like one.
It was Oh well. I mean, there's obviously the big epic one where she was going through a bout and her husband died of a heart attack and she couldn't get to him
That's
because
exactly
she was
what it
frozen
feels
like
like.
that. But there was just those instances where she would wake up or she would come to in the middle of sleep. Her husband's right next to her. She can't cry out. She can barely breathe, but she can see, and she was seeing the ghost hanging from the
It's
bent neck
exactly
plate,
what it
and
feels
so
like.
she was. But it was like in shadow. It was like recess, so it's kind of like you can't really make it out. So it played very much on that, and just that moment when she's in bed and she's fighting so hard to move, and her fingers are twisting up and her limbs are twisting up, but she can't get any traction, and she can barely breathe, and the fact that her diaphragm is partially paralyzed, so she's trying to breathe on a partially paralyzed diaphragm, and that causes her to panic, which makes you want to breathe
But you
harder
can't,
and
then you
faster,
start.
and because
Whoa.
you can't, and
They really portrayed, I
so
think,
it's and then
the feeling of it through visual representation absolutely perfectly on that, because like you say, you see this recess. Like there was a pile of boxes in my room, and I'm in one of these episodes, and it's like I feel like something's behind the box, and it's just terrifying, but you can't move. I've woken up on the floor, just like I said, cramps, because you're asleep, you're trying, your body's not trying, or your body's trying and your brain's trying not to, and it does absolutely feel like you're being twisted up and just crushed, and yeah, like you can't do anything. It's like if anything happened right now, I can't get away from it.
oh
It is. It's insane.
fuck,
It's
that was
super
wild.
intense.
It's a
Yeah, I was reading it was a short story earlier this week about somebody who suffered same thing, sleep paralysis, and he started documenting, and he would see like a small child like out of the corner of his eye, kind of thing.
okay. No,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
it was
no.
creepy, and it was a kid that was maybe about 5 years old in age, and part of his head was dented in, like basically like hit with a baseball bat or something like that, and it crushed like half his skull, kind of thing. And he only ever saw it in the shadows, but you can tell there's like a divot or something like that, like where part of the brain would go, kind of thing. It was a
And so if you
creepy
pull the
story.
paranormal out of that though, and like actually think about what's going on there, like that dude's brain is coming up with this stuff. Like what's
Yeah.
scarier, it actually being there, or
that is-
somebody being able to create something like that in their head? It's just
Hey man, reality is
you can't
is
even
perspective.
describe reality to me
And-
like through one of those those episodes. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is another dimension.
Well, by comparison, I could say from Wes Craven's They, that depiction of night terrors. Obviously, there's a supernatural element with the alternate dimension and the dimensional demons and stuff. the monsters that were coming out of the darkness. But I think the depiction of sleep paralysis, night terrors was a little on the embellished side
for the genre.
It may have been done.
Oh yeah,
it may have done more for cinematic effect. But Haunting of Hill House is according to Alex, according to you, is a solid depiction of what that's really like. And I think there was also a documentary about this called American Nightmare, where they actually went and they documented and followed individuals who suffered from sleep paralysis specifically. Some suffered from night terrors, but mostly of sleep paralysis. And then after going through an episode and filming them, watching them like that, and seeing what they go through, and what they describe, the person in the room or the shadow people they see moving, the shadows moving along the wall, and they're so utterly convinced that, and hey, really, like I said, reality is perception. They know that something is in that room with them, and that they have to move, or else it's going to get them. And they always seem to be able to pop out of it right before it closes in.
And is that because like your brain knows what's going on and it's not going to put you in danger? Is it because you're actually fighting that force?
It's wild.
I don't know.
That's the scary thing about sleep, is like you have no control. That's why that's why I'm so surprised this is such an underplayed movie, was because like that is what is terrifying about going to sleep every night, is because anything can happen when you're passed out. I mean, you can protect yourself all you want while you're awake, but when you're asleep, it doesn't matter if you got a gun by your nightstand or you're holding a knife. Like, if you're asleep, you're out. You're totally defenseless.
And the thing about sleep is it's unavoidable. It's not like, oh, I'm afraid of sharks, so just don't get in the water. You have to have sleep. So no matter what, you have to go to sleep. And if you try to stay up, your body will eventually just start shutting down. You start doing micro naps and stuff. So you can't.
No, and if you avoid it, you create other kinds of demons. Like, just going insane at that point.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Right. It's like at what point does one demon outweigh the other?
See, I will admit that was really, really slick, because you mentioned micro-napping, and what was it? The reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street. With Jackie Earle Haley. They covered that really in that film. They made a big point of it. And how Freddy was basically slipping in via these micro naps, when in essence their brain was trying to go to sleep while they were still awake. And how Freddy would sneak in those moments. I thought that shit was pretty freaky, was pretty brilliant. So, creepy stuff.
Yeah.
Not sleeping tonight. All right. Sleep can be scary, man.
So, you know what? What I would like to know is, for our listeners out there, do any of y'all have any sleep disorders? Go ahead and comment below. Do you know anybody with any sleep disorders? Or maybe you have a story or something like that from that you know of, or another film like that deals with it. So definitely let us know what kind of sleep disorders that you have, or possibly know somebody who has.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to hear if my experiences match up with other people's.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know.
Sure. All right, moving on down the week, we got November 28th, 1989. The good old super weird 80s. Filmed by written and directed actually by Wallace Potts. Psycho Cop. Psycho Cop. He always gets his man and everyone else.
He'll be the last cop you ever meet.
I was just reading that too.
You look like you need a policeman. God. This is your typical teenager in the woods getting fucked up by some fucked up something. And in this case, it happened to be this Satan worshipping police officer. And these 6 kids go out. I think, who was it? Robert Schaefer was Officer Joe Vickers, at your service.
Yes.
And he sees his kids, and he's I think the one of the taglines was like, it's something along the lines of he's a policeman, but there's only one problem: he likes to kill people. I was like, yeah. So he sees a prime opportunity with these 6 individuals in the cabin, and slowly, one by one, just fucks them all up.
See, that's a beautiful thing of the 80s. They did not mince words. Okay? You got Killer Cop Killer Cop roaming around. He's fueled by Satan like this. It's like, this cop is fueled by Satan. He kills people.
He's a cop.
He's a cop. That whole it's really simple. Like apparently log lines were really easy back in the 80s.
Like that was the whole movie was just, one-liners. Like when he's about to kill that one kid, friggin' dude. He's about to, he's like, you shouldn't run from the police. What? What?
Dude, and that fucking dude. Okay, that actor, he that
has
smile
a crazy
he had,
Jack Nicholson look in his. Oh.
He's just like, I'm really fucking
He's
enjoying
like
this.
out freaking pentagrams in the dirt, and that was a wild movie, man. That was just. It was like a great end of the 80s era movies, too, because it was just, they just put it all into one. All right, we're going to do one last stupid slasher movie, Ready, Set, Go. Wallace Potts did a great job with making it funny.
Like, I feel like in that production meeting, they're like, okay, we got a group of kids, and they got to get killed by something. And they're like, oh, well, what about, like, an axe murder? No, we have too many of those. Well, what about, like, a chainsaw? No, too many of those. What about a cop? There it is.
Oh, they're getting attacked, and they call the police.
Score!
Wait, what if they were getting attacked by the police?
By the police.
By the police.
You look like you need a policeman.
They always need to call the cops. They always call you can see that meeting. They always try to call the cops, but the cops never show up, or they can't get a cop. What if they got a cop and the cop was the killer?
Wait, but what's his backstory? I don't know. Satanic panic's going on. Make it about Satan. Fueled by Satan.
Fueled by Satan, yeah.
Not even like a demon either. Just some normalized dude who's like, I like Satan and killing people, but I also want to wear a badge.
And I think there was a scene in the second one. It was so fucking absurd. Is that he survives? There's a sequel, Psycho Cop 2, and he's driving around. At the opening of the movies, he's driving around in his patrol car, and like the inside of the patrol car, like the seats, everything is just slathered with blood. He's got like satanic imagery like painted all over the inside of the dash, on the rear view mirror, and there are fucking body parts like all throughout, like just piled up in the back seat and in the front, like in the passenger seat right next to him and shit. So from the outside, it looks like a cop, but the inside is just a fucking massacre of the shit. He's just driving around with that fucking smile on his face. This is fucking normal.
I had so much fun this weekend, guys.
I wonder if he goes back to the station like that too. Like, does he like switch out cars? He go back to the station and gets out and like, oh yeah, that's just him again. Just ignore his car. Don't worry about that.
No, they know that's Vickers' car. You don't fuck with Vickers' car. No one looks at Vickers' car. Just let Vickers drive his car.
Back when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was,
and that's an interesting. So that's an interesting aspect of horror, because horror from authority is kind of I think is a seriously underappreciated or underused genre. When you have like, the cops is the aspect of the horror, or teachers, or scientists, or doctors like Dr. Giggles, or the dentist. Like horror from authority, that these are supposed to be the authority figures in our lives. And I think it was well served, because the 80s was ripe for that. The 70s, the 80s just ripe for slashers. We got a little bit in the 90s, but things started getting a little more, I guess, introspective. Instead of the external threat, it was really more the internal threat. So we started getting like body horror and is psychoanalytical, like the psychological horror really bumped up in the 90s. So the 80s was just the heyday of the slasher. And, with the psychological horror, we really didn't get much out of the horror from authority. And honestly, that's because it plays on that. It plays on that natural fear. It's like the same thing we talked about last week with animals horror. Like, you know, dogs are supposed to be our best friend, and then the dog turns on us, and that's really fucking scary. But when the cops turn on you, or the doctor turns, like you're going under for surgery, and the doctor can do whatever the fuck he wants to you, you know, or the dentist, you know, because that's some really painful fucking shit if he just starts cranking on your teeth. You know, Corbin Burnson style in The Dentist. You know, this horror from authority, I think, is a really underplayed, undersold genre.
Yeah, because it plays off the fear of being like helpless. Because a lot of times it's like, okay, we'll call for help, and then all of a sudden they're not coming, they're not there. No, you are absolutely on your own. You have to deal with the situation, and that's it. Your life depends on it. Good luck. Which is really scary in a lot of situations.
Yeah, absolutely can be. I mean, the whole having a police officer, the one that you're supposed to trust, you know, of course this was back before we turned into this fucking, I'm not even going to say mean things, this society that we deal with now where everybody hates the police. Back then, like, the cops were like community members and friends and family and neighbors, and it was somebody that you look up to, and you get these notions that they're supposed to be these ones that help you, and then they're the ones that hurt you. Like you said, teachers. That's another big one. That's somebody that you're around every day of your life, and you hear horror stories about teachers, you know, messing around with kids or killing kids, and it's like, how are you supposed to trust these people when there's so many bad stories? And the media really made that scary, kind of going into the 90s even, you know, having these dirty cops and these dirty cop movies, and then you get this cop, you know, that just wants to kill everybody.
You know, it's almost like the media took the subgenre away. Because the media started shining a spotlight on the societal effects of this shit.
But what's really interesting is looking at this time period that it came out. It came out in 1989. This is what, a year or two before the LA riots.
Oh yeah.
Anything you got to think about?
It was. Yeah, that was 92.
Yeah, 92. So it was almost, you know, and you know, all stories of fiction come from some form of truth. But it's almost maybe there's some stuff brewing under the surface at that point that made something like this get made. Kind of, I'm not saying that they're trying to make a huge statement or anything like that, but it's kind of like maybe things that they've witnessed or things they've seen. It's like, well, you know, maybe what if we made a movie about this?
It was before, you know, it was so far, or it was so short between this big event happening for like kind of the first time, and then they made a movie about it. Maybe there's like, okay, there wasn't time to like think about who might get offended or, you know, who this might affect. And then you kind of so you're saying that kind of spills over from this into the movie, and then all of a sudden the movie and the media have now made this big stigma.
Yeah, exactly. It was maybe tensions were building, right, kind of thing, and that eventually, you know, the movie came out, but tensions kind of kept building, but the movie got made because there's maybe some tension starting to come up there. You know, I'm not saying anything, you know, like bad about police officers. No, I don't love police officers, but maybe at that time there were kind of like some friction going on.
You go ahead.
Yeah, it's entirely possible because like the effects that Jaws like had on swimmers, Jaws going to the ocean, people were terrified of the water. You know, and then you've got Stephen King, who the vast majority of his works are, you know, making people afraid of mundane things. You know, so there are effects of that. You know, I think one of the greatest ones is the effect that Jaws had on beachgoers, but that's all fiction. Like, you know, giant shark. You know, we can separate that. That's for, you know, that's fiction there. Or like, you know, Blood Beach. We know there's not monsters underneath the sand. Okay, so
I like to bring that movie up.
Do we?
You know, so like that. But when you take something like, you know, like Psycho Cop or the Maniac Cop series, or
RoboCop. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, you know, when you take films like that and they're rooted, even though they're silly and they're goofy and they're totally fiction, but you have character archetypes that are based in reality. So, and it may have been unfortunate timing that they were playing into this, and then all of a sudden, as technology grew and as media grew, we began to see a greater spotlight on the kind of darker side of the police, the darker side of doctors, the darker side of teachers, people in authority. And so then, well, now it's pervasive in the media. People, and it's like people want to go to the movies to get away. So we just heard about this teacher who kidnapped the 16-year-old girl and took off with her and like raped her, or we heard or the Rodney King riots, or something terrible like that, and then or war crimes, the military, if the military or something bad happens with the military or something crazy. We don't want to see movies that when we're trying to forget this horrible shit. So maybe the advent of technology kind of stole it away, and we just can't get it anymore. Simply because we see it every day on television.
It's all over the internet, everywhere. I mean,
and the internet. Oh yeah,
it's so quick because you'll have an event happen and it'll pop up on like my Facebook and stuff like that as the event is happening.
Yep.
Which is that's it's
trying
insane.
to refrain from making an Epstein reference here.
I think it's in the same vein as like you would never. I think in the past 10 years, I think I've only seen one fiction film, or no, I've seen two fiction films that dealt with like a school shooter. And one of them was with Tilda Swinton and John C. I think it was John C. Reilly. It was we have to talk about Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other one I know starred, I think Evan Rachel Wood, and had Uma Thurman in it. And it was about two friends, and then one of them was killed in a school shooting. But I've only seen two. It's because it's so fucking pervasive. It happens all the fucking time, and we'd rather, when we go to see movies, even scary movies, we don't want to be reminded that what we're watching, though it may be fiction, is happening out there in reality.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I saw probably maybe 10 years ago, something like that. It was a movie Elephant that dealt with it was like a little indie film kind of thing that dealt with like a school shooting, like in a high school kind of thing. Similar to the Columbine incident. Kind of thing, but it's a really touchy subject to get with. It really is. That's why you just don't see it very often.
Right. Which, I mean, that begs the question.
We started.
Can you make this kind of film today, with everything that's been going on in the media, with the police and shootings, Walmarts are getting shot up? Would we be able to make this type of film today? An audience, is that something that you would even want to see? Would you want to see a film on these they were using as a background for a movie, just as like a quirky maybe joke? Would we be able to watch that nowadays and kind of be okay leaving the movie theater?
That's a really good question. Can something like that be made?
Would you go watch a movie about a psycho killer cop?
Yeah, exactly.
I would. I would go watch a movie about a psycho killer cop.
Or really anything. I think everything going on in the media is a joke.
I can separate fact
anyway,
I could separate fact from fiction. I understand that.
Some people can't.
But yeah, I'm curious as what the audience has to say. Yeah, I would like to know what are their opinions? Could we have a film? Could we have this film? Could we see a remake of Psycho Cop? Could somebody reboot that shit? Could we have films like it? Definitely. This topic started out so funny, and we were laughing our ass off, and it went so dark, so fucking quick.
Because it was funny. It was supposed to be
It just hit me, just like how fucking. It was like it's a funny fucking movie. It's literally a horror comedy. It's goofy. It's fucking weird. It's this. He's running around with the smile on his face like he's fucking popping fresh, and he's ripping people apart.
Think we made that though.
And
today.
And these teens, the teens he's killing are so fucking stupid. They're so dumb. And then this whole subject, we're like, yeah, it's funny, it's great. This is really
I think it's dark because it's like you gotta deal with the fact that like now you can't touch like any of those. You can't touch like the Satanism thing. You can't touch the mental health aspect behind it. You can't touch the police part of it. You can't touch you'd have to make the cast super diverse or people would get offended by it. And so it's so we're just, the society's so squishy right now that you can't take like oh hey look, a crazy killer Satan cop is murdering the teenagers. Ha ha ha. It wouldn't go down like that. And
Exactly.
that sucks because it's like,
Just the idea.
we grew up with
makes
this
me
kind of
laugh.
stuff, and then you get this whole next generation of kids, and it's like, dude, just stop being so offended, and everybody will stop shooting each other, and we can probably just live in one dark, twisted world together, laughing our asses off at stupid shit like the 1989 film Psycho Cop.
Yes.
Yes,
You know,
thank you.
you,
Preach, brother.
you used to be able to make fun of everybody. You look at movies like Airplane, right? You look at Mel Brooks, right? Who left nothing behind, right? I mean, Blazing Saddles, I love that movie. Has some of the most racist lines ever, and it's hilarious.
I have 15. I have 10 commandments.
But that's even the thing, like, we got Disney
shit
Plus, and my
was
daughter was like looking through it, and she's like, what's that so Raven? I was like, let me tell you a story about my childhood. And I turned on That's So Raven, and it was like, you couldn't even make this TV show today.
Yes, you definitely couldn't have Blazing
no.
Saddles today.
But I wish we could. Let's make a remake
no, anything.
of that.
I would love to see that. That would get picketed so hard.
It's like, you see this hand? Steady as a rock. Yeah, but I shoot with this one. Fucking Gene Wilder was so on point in that movie. Oh, holy shit. Just that, I'm sorry. Just that, hey, wait a minute. Oh, sorry, his hands are just black from all those cross burnings. And he flips his hand over, see? Clean already. I was like, oh my god!
Yes. Love Mel Brooks.
But yeah. Hopefully we'll see. I know I'm getting old. I'm getting sold. But hopefully we'll see a turn at the theaters, and we can kind of see some of this goofy shit that when people stop taking themselves so damn seriously.
We gotta start making fun of ourselves again, and not being offended when people make fun of us.
Absolutely.
Yes. And that brings us on to our next one, and another big favorite of mine. It's a Stephen King adaptation. Came out November 30th, 1990. 1990 was a good year for horror, but this particular one was Misery.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yes, Misery, adapted from the epic Stephen King book, adapted from the excellent Stephen King book, and directed, surprisingly, by Rob Reiner.
He did such a good job.
Yeah, I know, right?
Man, that guy can direct anything.
So, directed by Rob Reiner, and a screenplay by William Goldman, based on, obviously, Misery by Stephen King, and a stellar cast. You have James Caan, Kathy Bates, two legends right there, Lauren Bacall, Francis Sternhagen, Richard Farnsworth, just a fantastic cast of character actors. And for those not familiar, because this did come out, in 1990, I was 10 years old when this movie came out. Shut up. But the film follows a writer, as Stephen King is very often his main characters are writers like he is. Write what you know. But it follows this writer named Paul Sheldon, who is a international bestseller for his Misery books. Misery is a character that he writes about. And one day, Paul is traveling along, going to one of his little meet and greets, a signing on his book tour, and he gets into a car accident and almost dies. And as he's lying in the car, he's saved by Kathy Bates' character. And Kathy Bates plays Annie Wilkes. And Annie Wilkes pulls Paul Sheldon from the car, drags him to her home, and begins to rehabilitate him, begins to nurse him back to health, because she herself is actually a nurse, and she begins nursing him back to health. And then he discovers, once he comes to, that Annie Wilkes is his number one fan, and she really fucking is. To the point that she will not let him go. And things take a turn in several really horrifying ways.
Really likes him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, needless to say, when Annie finds out that the latest Misery book that Paul has written essentially kills the main character, and he intended to end the Misery line with that book, when Annie finds this out, she flips
But
her
Misery's
shit.
spirit lives on.
And
Oh,
she flips her shit in a way that is just wow.
Oh
it's
my
so
god.
gnarly.
Wow. It
And-
is the scene itself is one of the most famous scenes in film, period, not just in horror, right? It's called the hobbling scene. And it is a
Spoiler alert.
spoiler alert. And it is as bad as it sounds. And it is you have James Caan, who is basically tied to a bed, right?
Oh, wait, a second. Before you go into it, kind of tell audiences who are not familiar with what hobbling is.
So hobbling, it comes from when back in the day, I'm talking like early 1900s, would kind of disobey masters and by trying to run. And so the thing was is they didn't want to just shoot the workers or, slash slaves or whatever they're dealing with. They didn't want to shoot them because then that's property done. Work still needs to be done. So what they do is they make it so that they can't run again because they still want them to work, but they want to ensure that you couldn't run again. So it's basically like crippling somebody permanently. And yeah, and so this scene was it was a really controversial scene because in the novel, Annie actually cuts Paul's foot off with an axe, kind of thing. And so Goldman, the writer on it, they're kind of going back and forth if they even want to include the scene or not. And so it was really kind of up in the air for a long time if they were even going to do anything. And they decided to compromise on the way they did in the film with the sledgehammer. And so she basically goes, he's tied to a bed looking up at her, and she goes and she takes a 2x4, puts it in between his ankles, and then she comes in with a sledgehammer and hits his ankle, basically almost ripping his foot off completely. And
not that it's a huge
way the
deal, but
foot
it's
turned.
actually a 4x4, so it's like a post that you'd get like from a fence.
It's like a post.
yeah,
and
4x4.
his foot just fucking folds,
It's just-
man.
Dude,
It
and
is
Kathy Bates
so
played
gnarly.
that scene so freaking well, and she was just like, she's so nonchalant about it, and she's like, this is just absolute. This is what needs to happen. Don't worry, it's fine. Just take a deep breath. And she's just like, and she, oh,
It'll be all over.
It's almost over.
Yeah.
It's almost over.
Oh yeah. So she hits the first ankle, and she's like, almost
She's
done.
so sure that that's what needs to happen at that
Oh.
point in time, and it's like, oh my, could you imagine?
So brutal
So,
because it
and
was a slow burn.
All
It's a
the way
slow
up,
burn
and
into that.
it started
And
breaking
you-
down when when he like looks at the bottom of the phone and there's like no guts in the phone, and she's like, I never called him, and then he gets busted with the
yeah.
she's like, he's looking for the knife after she comes back, and she's like, you looking for this? And it's like, dude, he's done.
Oh, he's fucked.
And I mean, really, to give like a perspective on her performance, I mean, she won an Oscar.
Yeah, absolutely,
too.
she was fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she was incredible in that movie. She's so creepy. So creepy.
She
I'm
plays
never
it-
going to meet a fan like that. I like my ankles.
And she's, when he starts to discover who she is too, like sees the newspaper article, and it's like she used to be like wasn't it like a pediatric nurse or something like that? Yeah.
yeah.
And then it's like, oh shit. Yeah, that just, she was fantastic. She was so into that role.
The way she because it's a slow build as she begins to kind of unravel. Because she gets so manic when Paul shows up. She's like, oh my god, I get to do all this stuff. But once Paul starts exerting himself and, is like, he's a person too, he ceases to be an extension of her. And he, when he starts, he's expressing his individuality, she starts unraveling. But it's such a slow unravel, And it's only, I think, her big moment was when he's dead asleep. And so he's asleep, and she comes into his room at night, in the middle of the night, and wakes him up because she's gone through his stuff, and she's found the final the final manuscript. Oh no. He let her read it. So she's got the final manuscript. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to go read this and I'm going to cherish it." So she disappears off into the house to go read it. Well, that night he's asleep, and she like comes into the room, and the scene just opens up. She is standing at the foot of his bed, and she's read that he's killed Misery, and it's the first moment where we see that this bitch is unstable, and she just freaks out.
Misery dies, or you killed Misery or something. Yeah, you killed her.
You killed her. Like, you killed Misery. It was so insane. And then for her to flip on a dime again, just so rapidly. It was just Kathy Bates. There's a reason they keep bringing her back to do Stephen King stuff, because, you know, she had an appearance in The Stand, and she was Dolores Claiborne, which honestly I think is one of her finest performances.
She was just great all around. Definitely an underrated actress.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But crazy fucking fans, man.
That spills over. That's so cool that they had done that so long ago, but it's also terrifying because it's still to this day you see stuff like that. All the way up until I just read a story actually about a Miley Cyrus fan who like was this dad, like 40-something-year-old dad, covered in Miley Cyrus tattoos. And then there was a story, Beyonce, a lot of it's pop nowadays, but Beyonce ended up getting pulled off a stage by a fan once. And you just get these people that are so wrapped up in this, I guess you'd call it pop culture, that these people just go absolutely insane. They get this notions that they're a part of these people's lives. And it's terrifying, because it's like it could happen to anyone. And if you're ever in entertainment business, you always wonder why people always got these bodyguards. You know, it's not to like look cool with your entourage. Like, people are absolutely insane. They will do stupid stuff like that whole Justin Bieber and having little girls cutting themselves, and it goes all the way back. 1990.
Yeah.
That was, no offense, the year I was born. But like if it's been happening, you know, that was obviously something that these writers had seen before, and they played off of it. You know, it's probably gone way back too. But just like having that weight and that pressure of like knowing that there is going to be a group of people, no matter who you are, any work that you put out, there's going to be somebody that's going to grab onto it and become a fanatic, and that can be good. But then you get into, you know, sometimes people might have like a mental illness, like in this movie when she's this pediatric nurse, and then this event happens, and you know, she becomes unstable, and then at that point it's like they could put themselves, other people, and even like you in danger. It can be terrifying. It makes it a horror story for not only like these people that can't get to their celebrity or whatever, but then the celebrity themselves have to worry about these psychos.
Well, you think about what Selena, when it happened, like 95, yeah, where she was killed
Leader
by
of the fan club.
Person in charge of the fan club.
It's all over the place.
Kind of thing.
I could say I've done a few films because I'm also an actor, and I've done a few films in my day. But early in my career, I had done 2 local films that shot locally here in Dallas, and both of the films got it was a double feature. They got shown as a double feature. And it was a cool event. I got to see myself up on the big screen. It was really, really neat. I was young, and I was like, "Oh, look at me! I'm up on the 60-foot screen." It was really cool. And we were in the theater and watching it. And it was fine. It was great. It was just a little thing that I did.
It was called Batman.
Something came of it. And now I'm not D-list or anything. I'm not even Z-list. I'm nobody in the friggin' Hollywood scene. Okay, I'm nobody big. But even me, there was an awakening, because one night at the apartment complex that I was living in was over off Skillman and Abrams. For those who are not local, it's a very, very shady area. I think my apartment was like $400 a month. It was just trash, and it was just a garbage. No,
Skillman was the best street in Dallas.
It was the only place I could. It was the only place I could afford to live. Well, one night I was partying at a friend's house who lived in the same community, and they'd run out of drinks. So I was like, I'm going to run over to the vending machine and get a Diet Coke. And I think it was like 1:00 in the morning. So this wasn't very smart of me. So I go out into, but it's on the property. So I go out to the over to the office, and it's kind of dark because it's not well lit. And I'm standing at the vending machine, and I'm trying to get this thing to take my dollar. And I suddenly am aware that somebody's watching me, and I'm like, I turn around and look, and there's this guy who's like standing about 25 yards away, and he's just standing there in the shadow.
That's creepy.
And he's just staring at me, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. All right, take my dollar, take my dollar, take my dollar. It's not taking my dollar. And then I kind of glance back, and he's moved forward a bit. And then as I'm glancing at him, he's slowly creeping towards me. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to get fucking mugged in this parking lot. He's going to take my dollar.
Dude,
I'm not going to get my fucking soda. Or because I only had $1 on me at the time, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking die over this dollar. And this guy gets up on me. Finally, the machine takes my dollar. I get my Diet Coke, and I turn around, and he's like,
Dude, you almost died because
5
of
feet from
Diet
me.
Coke?
And he's looking at me dead in the eyes, and he's like, hey man, I know you. And I was like, hey, how's it going? And I was just trying to be really cool about it. And he was like, yeah, I saw you in those movies. At the theater, and he mentioned the theater. I can't remember which one it was. I don't even think it's there anymore. But he was like, "I saw you in those movies." I was like, "Oh, cool, thanks." Did you like him? And he was like, "Oh, they were great, man. You were really good." And I was like, because in one I played a bad guy, and the other one I played the comic relief of a duo. So I played the physical comedy role, and I played a bad guy in the other one. And he was like, "Yeah, you were really good." And all the time he's talking to me, he's stepping closer towards me.
Yeah.
But with these really tentative steps, and I'm like, very cool. And I was like, really cool, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming out and checking it out. I'm glad you had fun. He was like, yeah, man, that was so good. And he had this look in his eyes. I'm thinking, and it passed. Nothing bad happened. I thanked him. He was like, yeah, cool. And I was like, all right, man, I got to get back. You have a good night. And he was like, great, yeah, thanks, man, cool. And then he went about his business. I went about mine. But I'm thinking that creepy moment, and I'm nobody. And I'm trying to think someone who actually has some fame. This happening to them. It's like what happened to me times 1,000. It was just that one brief moment I had, and I was like, it allowed me to kind of empathize with the people who truly have crazy fans. Like they think that they're that the celebrity is an extension of themselves or something like that, or like they love the celebrity so much that they think the celebrity knows it too, or they should recognize it the minute they see them or something. I have no fucking clue. But that was my close crazy fan call.
Yeah, I read an interview from David Schwimmer that came out like a year or two ago, and he said despite everything happening in Friends, he has just now finally come to terms with his fame, like 20 years later, because he felt like everybody, since he got on that show, since he started doing that show, everybody wanted a piece of him or to use him in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
So he had to protect himself from basically everybody. If you weren't like on the show or in his little circle of friends or whatever, he would stay away from people.
Smart man.
He couldn't go anywhere.
Oh, but it just drives you into hiding.
It does.
You become antisocial just to protect yourself.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, you have to, because you can't get close to other people. You don't know. You keep thinking of people's ulterior motives. You have money. Are they trying to get your money? Are they trying to use you for your fame? Are they trying to, you have celebrities that, with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's kid, a friend that they grew up with that Ryan knew before he got famous, took pictures of one of their babies and then sold it to the press for $10,000.
Jesus.
Just praying about, yeah. Just
praying.
Just it's
I mean,
fucking
that's not
crazy.
Quite
It is. It's
dragging you on a
crazy.
flipped over
Fucking
car into
crazy.
your house, smashing your ankles so you can't leave, and then trying to force you to rewrite a story that you've already put up there.
They don't get it. These are fictional characters.
That's the hard part about it. You want to make characters relatable, but if you make them too relatable, you'll probably get a knife in your throat.
Oh fuck.
Oh yeah. Oh man, it's crazy. Crazy fans.
Crazy stuff. So that brings up to our audience, to our lovely listeners. Do you have a crazy fan story? Let us know if you do. We love to hear your crazy fan stories or your interactions. Or did you see a crazy fan? Did you see somebody do something insane? We want to hear about it. Let us know in the comments what your crazy fan story is. And as I understand, this week we've got
Two
two
of
big
them.
birthdays.
Yes, we do. First of all, real quick, I've got to tell you a quick crazy fan story. Right?
Go
I'll
for
end it on a good note so we can laugh about it. So, for those who don't know, I played in a touring rock band for about 6 years, right? And so we played around over in Plano and Garland and Dallas and all this other kind of stuff for a while. Well, somebody actually, who was a fan of ours, started a rumor that we were going to play at their house party kind of thing. We had no idea about it at all whatsoever, right? But they're like, yeah, we're going to go and they're going to play and blah, 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 and all this other kind of stuff. And all these people got pumped and excited and, whatever, but didn't contact us at all whatsoever. Through a crazy series of events, I end up at this party by myself.
Oh my god!
Like, I go, I meet some people, and we're like, like drinking a beer, and they're like, hey, yeah, no party, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, whatever, right? So I walk into the door of this party, right? And they're like, the band's here! And everybody starts cheering. And they're like, yeah, you can set your stuff up over here. We can move the corner for you and everything else and blah, 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 blah. And I'm standing in the door, and there's like 60 people, 50, 60 people at this party. And I'm standing there like, so, I call another band member, like, did we miss a show? And they're like, no, we don't have anything planned. I was like, so I had to tell 60 people that we weren't going to play.
You had a fucking pick of destiny moment when Kyle Gass was in the party with no Jack Black, and he's like trying to play. Like, I don't have a guitar. Here's one. Oh shit. Oh, that is so wrong.
That sucks.
So I just
I could hear Marilyn Manson's voice in Californication. It was like, oh my god, it's Marilyn Manson. I'm just here to do some narcotics.
I heard you have beer. That was the only reason I was here.
I'm just looking for a beer.
So I think y'all appreciate that. But yeah, we have a couple of birthdays, right? The first birthday we have is born November 28th, 1946, legendary horror director Joe Dante.
Yes. Happy birthday, Joe.
Yes, he's responsible for Gremlins, The Howling. He did Small Soldiers. He did Inner Space. I mean, just legendary horror director.
I mean, you got to throw it out there, man. Because, The Howling, Gremlins. He did Explorers, with River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke when they were young. Small Soldiers, but come on, dude. Sorry, but come on.
Yes.
He did Piranha. Okay, he kicked this shit off in 1978 with fucking Piranha, and that movie was fucking amazing.
God,
yes.
So old.
Yes. Oh yes.
God, it's so old.
It's just you mentioned some of these movies, and it's like you've seen them in theaters, and I'm like, wow. I laugh at those on, my flat screen, because that's when I was old enough to watch him.
Now, I know I don't want to piss off any Joe Dante fans. I know I said he kicked it off with Piranha. I know his first film was Hollywood Boulevard. It's 1976. I'm aware of that, but I don't think Joe Dante hit his stride until he really got into zany horror. So when he started giving us Piranha, The Howling, which The Howling was fucking amazing. I showed that to my wife. Watched that as part of her 30 days.
Was that her
31
first
days
time?
of Halloween. She'd never seen.
No way.
She'd never seen The Howling.
Wow.
She'd never seen the first one, and it just blew her mind. It was so fucking. I love that fucking movie. He did Twilight Zone the movie.
Yeah, he also did 2 episodes of Masters of Horror.
Oh fuck yeah, he did. He did the Screwfly Solution.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yes.
And you can't fault the guy who did Amazon Women on the Moon. I mean, Joe, when he started getting into this shit, when he started getting into that and giving us that zaniness, come on, Gremlins, fucking amazing. The horror comedy is just that's his
Toy Soldiers. Or Small Soldiers. Yeah, Small Soldiers.
Small Soldiers, yeah.
Sorry. I was thinking of the Eminem song. Small Soldiers. That was fantastic.
But yes.
I loved that movie as a
God.
kid. I loved it so much.
he directed an episode of the Twilight Zone in the 80s when it came back in the 80s. He directed the Shadow Man episode of that, and he also did directed 2 episodes of Amazing Stories.
Oh, really?
The Spielberg produced series. Yes, he did 2 of those, and I think he worked on Erie, Indiana.
Erie, Indiana.
That was a show, right?
So he's yes. Mm-hmm. Oh yes. Yeah. Oh come on. Yeah. Erie. What was it? I recently went back and rewatched Erie, Indiana, and then I think that got me back into Freaky Links, which was an Ethan Embry show back in the day. So. Oh, but Joe Dante, man, he's been around and given us some of the best memories, especially out of the 80s.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, Joe Dante.
Happy birthday, Joe.
One other one, somebody we've actually talked about tonight, Ridley Scott, born November 30th, 1937. So he's getting up there. Was that
the amazing happy birthday, Sir Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Yes, Sir
Ridley Scott. Yes.
Some of the greats, man. He just a ridiculous filmography before him. Blade Runner was fantastic. Did stuff on like Gladiator, Hannibal, Black Hawk Down. Some of the biggest named movies you've ever heard of have this guy's name on it. I'm trying to think of his most recent that I could come up with. But even going into like 2020, he's got stuff coming up, like a lot of movies coming up that he's going to be producing. Gladiator 2 is going to be coming out. There's one called Emma's War. I don't know if you've ever heard anything on that, but that's one that he's working on that I'm super excited about. Stuff like Pompeii.
Go ahead.
I love this story about Ridley Scott, how he was getting into film. And so he was a production assistant on the Doctor Who TV show. Back in the day, the original series.
Which Doctor?
I can't remember which Doctor it was. But I mean, definitely early on. It had to be maybe the first 2 or 3 Doctors. That was it. Because this him like first.
Yeah, his name was all over the original production.
Yeah. And so after his experience on Doctor Who, he actually wanted to give up sci-fi. And it's like, I'm done with sci-fi. I want to move on to other stuff. And then he saw Star Wars, A New Hope, and that helped inspire Alien.
That fucker saw that and said,
watch this.
I can do that too.
Ridley Scott saw those aliens, was like, fuck these things, I could do this better.
And yeah, that's
you know what if the alien
watch this
with a
another
face.
Dude, that movie was pretty good.
He was so real. Now, talking about Ridley Scott, such a legendary director. He's given us so much. Thelma and Louise, one of my favorite films. G.I. Jane,
that's right.
Just kind of solidified Demi Moore for me. I fucking love G.I. Jane. Black Hawk Down was amazing. So many good things. American Gangster. Holy shit.
Yeah, Denzel Washington.
Fucking Denzel and 2 Oscar winners, Denzel and fucking Russell Crowe. God damn. So, but the thing that makes me the most curious is all the money in the world. Okay? And I hate bringing this up. I know it's a touchy subject for some people because All the Money in the World originally had Kevin Spacey in it. And when the allegations about Kevin Spacey came out, there was such a knee-jerk reaction because of the Me Too movement. And Ridley Scott, in all of his for all his brilliance, went back and cut all of the scenes with Kevin Spacey in them. He hires Christopher Plummer, also a brilliant actor, to come in and redo every one of Spacey's takes. Okay, and fortunately, because Christopher Plummer is an amazing talent, he knocks it all out I think he pretty much knocked everything out one take. Okay, because I think he was pretty much just running off of Kevin Spacey's cues on that. So he's pretty much just redoing Kevin Spacey's performance in his own way. Mm-hmm. And so, but Christopher Plummer comes in there, and in essence, they basically reshot the film. And so Ridley Scott took a movie that he already had in the can, okay, took it back to the editing, so took it back to the studio, cut all that stuff out, reshot everything with Christopher Plummer, re-edited the film, and then and they'd already had it in the can, and there was already a release date set. And then, on top of that, we recently find out that the allegations against Kevin Spacey were unfounded and were not true.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
But he even went in and, like you said, he put all that work into making sure that it was right for everybody.
I think now I'm torn on that because I'm such a fan of his work, and I know, and I was so sympathetic when his brother committed suicide, and I've just followed his career. I've been a fan of almost virtually everything he's ever made, but it was this one thing. And he hasn't said anything about it, and I try to convince myself that it's his dedication to the story, that the story had to be told, and the story had to be felt. And if you put Kevin Spacey in it with the stuff around Kevin Spacey at the time, it would not, the movie wouldn't, people would be thinking about that instead of the story. So I, like, in my idealistic world, want to believe that Ridley Scott was saving the integrity of the film. It was not because things had turned against Kevin Spacey and he didn't want to, and it wasn't, he was trying to say, I don't think Ridley Scott, I've never met him, but I don't imagine he's the kind of guy who wants to save face, for anything. He's like, right. Fuck you, I'll do it myself. He's definitely one of those, I take it, he's not as hardcore as Cameron in that respect, but he definitely dances to his own tune. And I like to believe he did it for the integrity of the movie, just to save the story. So when people watch this movie and they can forget that, Marky Mark is in there, feel it, and they can forget that. But he wanted to save the integrity of the story, which I think is a valiant thing. Although the optics don't look great, but that's just my humble opinion.
And I think that's what makes him such a legendary director, is because he's always thinking about how is the audience going to perceive my work. Because, working in the film industry, I run into so many directors that are like, you should watch my film this way. And if you don't watch it this way, then you just don't get it. And, you don't understand it. And they blame the audience versus somebody like Ridley Scott who's going to go, this is how the audience is going to watch my film. And I want to make sure they watch it the right way. And it's more like guiding the audience instead of trying to force the audience. And that's why he has such a long career and so many epic movies, because he's always thinking about
still going on too. Did you guys see that there's going to be like a Blade Runner TV series?
Oh, they're doing
it's going to be it's
spin-off?
Called Blade Runner Black Lotus. It's going to be 12 episodes. They've already got it signed and announced, so that's going to be super cool.
Very cool.
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, hopefully, I know he's I think he's 81 now, so hopefully he'll be able to keep the energy up and keep going, because everything he turns out is just fucking gold, in my opinion. So happy birthday, Ridley Scott.
Happy birthday.
Can't forget the OBE. All right. Well, that closes out another week in horror. Thank you all so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. As always, if you have any feedback, comments, or questions for us, please feel free to write them in the comments or get in touch with us via our Facebook page. You can check us out on Spotify. We're available there. Google and Apple Podcasts, Anchor FM, Broadcast. Anywhere you can find your favorite podcast, you can listen to Week in Horror. And don't forget, on our Facebook page, if you follow us there at facebook.com/weekinhorror, you can get our daily splatter, which is a daily tidbit of horror information and horror history sent straight to you to your feed every single day. So thank you so much again for your continued support. I'm JL.
I'm Eugene.
Alex.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.